Go.
Came to Washington, D.C. from an area of Washington, D.C. to an area called Four Corners outside of Washington, D.C. We could see the Washington Monument from there. It's only a few miles away. Matter of fact, we sighted it. We oriented our guns in on that monument. Our guns, we talk about 90 millimeter anti-aircraft cannon. The before that, we was at Fort Meade, Maryland, and got classroom instruction on all the directions of how the system works. I finally went to the gun battery because things are going on with Russia. We thought maybe they're going to fly airplanes over the pole and bomb someplace like Washington, D.C. So that was our main thing to work out for. If Russia comes over the pole, we're going to shoot him down. We had about 153 guys in a battery. It takes at least 130 to run, so we're running shorthanded. I was a newly married man, and I like to go home and see my bride. And if everything is going right, I'd get to see her maybe once, maybe twice a week. We were working 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, on the radar, waiting for warnings that the Russians are coming. And when they got the word they were coming, the whole regiment, we have a regiment there that would go into guns free, and when they got in range, we'd go to guns, or we'd go tight and then go guns free. And when they got in range, shoot them down. Fortunately, that never happened while I was there. We had lots of drills where they'd run our planes and they'd run them out 40, 50,000 yards out, and we track them. They drop chaff, they call it, which is a bunch of pieces of metal to try to distract our beam, and we get on that and then get back on the airplane. We tracked helicopters, we tracked jet planes, we tracked cars on the ground, we tracked geese, tracked flying over the border. We tracked what appeared to be a meteorite coming in one time and broke into it, looked like thousands of pieces. That was a nice one. And so we got pretty good with that thing. The radar we was using was the M33, the newest radar available to the military to use. Everything else is 584 or older. That's a very old radar unit. It goes back to the Second World War. When things started getting active and got real sensitive, we got that warning that something was going on. We had an alert, they called it. Everybody stayed in the battery to chain the gates so nobody could leave. That was known that they chained the gates so nobody could leave, and nobody could come in. And everybody was set on their job. A lot of us didn't have a job. I wasn't a full-time regular plotter in the radar. I was one of the fill-ins when the bad guys weren't there. Because I was just returned from Korea and expect I was going to get out of the army and go back to civilian life. I was only 18 then, and I'd only been married 3 or 4 months when I got in that place. So anyway, they were waiting my time. There's a bunch of us just waiting our time for that, just to fill in the slots in that battery. They had bodies there to try to make the thing work. This night that all the things began to get happen, it came on 2 weekends. I wish I could remember the date. The date can be found because it's a very well-known date. They called an alert and they told the plotters to start looking for, first let me tell you what they got in the radar. They got an acquisition radar. That's the one that's got a great big wing that goes around and around and just keeps on doing that. That one is ticking up everything in the atmosphere within range of that target in any direction. And they put spots all over the acquisition radar. The next one is a traverse radar and a search radar. Traverse radar goes with the azimuth. If the big acquisition picks up something, he doesn't know what it is, he sends a plot and it makes a peg on this guy's acquisition radar back here, and he tries to pick it up on his radar, and the other one goes up and down like that to get the elevation. Between those two, they go like this and lock on, and if they lock on, they go back to the acquisition, and the acquisition determines whether that plot that they've got and the plot that he gave them is anywhere near close for firing area. If it is, he goes guns free and they knock him down if he can't identify himself as an American plane. That's basically what goes on. But we had a situation there, we tried to get lock on them and they would disappear. And so what was that? What happened? Well, we must have had a bad plot. Nothing happens like that. Radar's too good for that. So then later on I got in there when nothing was happening. They said, come on, we'll show you what's going on so you can get in on this. And they put me on the plot board back here, the acquisition here, the other 2 radars there. And I'm keeping track of what goes on. This guy makes the first plot, I mark it on here. This guy makes a plot, I mark it on here. That guy makes a plot, I put them all 3 together, and then we see if they're getting pretty close. And then try to get a track going like that across the area to see where he is and see if he's getting to our close or the other. We're not the only ones out there, by the way. We got regiments guns and rockets and out there. We went 99 millimeter or 90 millimeter cannons. It was 120, and they had rockets that were, I forget about a 120 rocket that was up by Ajax. But we don't know one's around that area had those guns. But anyway, we try to track that guy. But this night, he said, what we want to see is we got the radars functioning properly with every check we can make. We want to see what's going on. We got something we're tracking solid, and it just disappears. And all of a sudden, it'll appear in another place. We get on it again, it'll disappear and pop up somewhere else. So it was getting quite exciting. This went on one Saturday and a Sunday morning. Saturday, all afternoon Saturday and Sunday night, Sunday morning, into the daylight, and he quit. The strange part is the thing was making what looked like a gull pattern like this. We were out here with Four Corners, Maryland, Washington Monument, close to the White House. I think the name of the airfield by Washington Airport, Langley or Andrews. Andrews Air Force Base. The thing was making a pattern like that. Four Corners, not White House, but the Washington Monument, Andrews, back and forth like that. And in between, it would just disappear. They'd lock on it, get going good with it, and not there anymore, pop up over here. It was quite interesting because you're trying to keep up with what it was doing. First, we thought it was some kind of game, somebody's playing and messed up our radar, giving us wild training, and finally kept saying it's not the radar. Something is messing up the pattern we're getting, or something's out there. I got my chance on the acquisition, and I like to play with that thing because I'd sit out there in my turret on a working 12-hour shift when nothing's going on. I'd pick up everything that was around, helicopters, airplanes out of Andrews, and planes from anywhere, and just track on and go find another one, see how far I could find a way and how low I could get them. So I was really good on that thing, and I got on it, and I was locking them good. I said, I got that one. Not there anymore. But bring around again. Still not there. Find him again. So they're searching, I'm sweeping, I'm going up and down the round. Tip, there he is. No, it's not him, it's a different one. Got him anyway. Gone. Guy says, here's something popping up on your screen. The screen's this big. Something's popping up here. I'm quick on that thing. They just popping up and disappearing, popping up and disappearing. It looks like it's phony. To me, I said, this is a game. It's got to be. It's not a game. There's really something up there. That's why we were on Guns Free. And so they took me out and put somebody else. Now, I was a wise guy, but even I still am, and I was then. These plots behind me are big screens that's on a roll. It's got a map like this and terrain features around it, and the lines that go through it, what a train. So I decided that would be a nice souvenir. So I took off about a section where it's got 2 or 3 plots on it. I rolled it up and took it out with me. The next weekend, everybody's grounded to the battery, nobody can go anywhere. Calls on the formation, one of our charts is missing. Nobody will leave this gun battery until it's returned. I said, wait a minute, I got it. I turned it in real quick. So they were real close on what was happening. Every piece of paper was being kept. Now I'm just talking about a group that's 53 people, plus the people that came in to try to help us out. Now we've got, a regiment has got probably 8 gun batteries like this around Washington, D.C. It's got the 120 cannon, a bunch that's around there, and the rocket orders. So we're not alone. All I'm talking about is just one little unit here. They're involved in it too. So I'm not alone. And then the next weekend was the same thing. I got on one time. They brought me in because things are going hot. Says, put Joe on here. He's real fast on the acquisition. I was nailing them right and left and losing them just as fast as to get them.
Were you hearing anything from the Air Force? Were they doing the same thing?
We don't hear what the other units say. We hear from the battery, the group control. The control officer sends us targets to look for. We go to that area and look for them. If they're not sending us in, they say, look for targets. We look for a target. If we don't see a beam come back from them, a recognition beam, it ain't one of our targets. It ain't one of our boys. It's a bad boy. Every plane's got a recognition signal they send down to the radars like that. So if they weren't sending it, we start searching. If they start sending, we get back on them. We look at theirs and look what, once we got him locked on theirs, they track it around and around and around. So get off that thing. He's no good. He's a local guy. Get on this little guy over here. It get quite exciting. It really was. It's with a short period of 18, 20 hours, maybe no more than that. It was an awful lot of excitement went on. And it got more excited because I was good on the acquisition. I was right in the middle of everything. I wasn't even a qualified person to be working in the radar. But I'd had all the training in the post back there, and I'm still carrying a machine gun, heavy weapons machine gun MOS. MOS is military specialist occupation, and I'm still a gunner and I'm working on this radar. And I had a ball with that thing. I loved it. But one night we got out, because here again, you mentioned something about sound. Did we hear anything? One night we decided to see if we could hear them, because it looked like they were coming extremely close to our battery. So a couple of guys went out on trucks and took the headlights off the trucks and pointed them straight up and sweep them around. Shut down everything for 15 minutes. Everything in the battery was shut down completely. Nothing running. Listen. Nothing. Turn it back up, and there they go, going right by us. So we can't see them with a light, and we can't hear them with an ear. We can pick them up on radar. That's the only thing we gain from it. And on the second weekend, they brought out search radars. They couldn't find anything at all. It's like there's nothing in the sky. We had things in the sky, and they didn't. That's about as far as it went.
Did anybody record saying that they physically saw them?
No.
No?
That's the same question. Did anybody hear anything? Did anybody see anything? No. Just the radar. They took that thing all down when they got through and checked everything they could find on it. There was nothing wrong with it. Run it back up and worked fine. Went back up to tracking planes 50,000 yards out with no trouble. No trouble at all. Airplanes out of Andrews, airplanes coming in from overseas. We did, I gotta throw in one other thing. We did pick up some small jets taken off out of Andrews or somewhere. I know they're jets because they're fast and they're not very big. They would get out of there, and two of them at a time would just go like rockets and go out. Once in a while I would see one come back, or maybe two come back. So they were doing something. I don't know what they were doing, but they were involved in the game.
Besides a blip showing here and then disappearing, and a blip showing elsewhere and disappearing, did you ever see any that would come together or go apart?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 would scatter and come into one bunch, become small, get big again, change size, separate. Looks like they were operating as a bunch of individuals get together and discuss something and then go do something else.
Did the radar give you any concept of how big of an object you were looking at?
Oh yeah, give you the size of it, weight of it, and direction of it, the whole works.
So what?
Is it just from a reflection from a whatever kicks the signal back?
So what type of size were they registering?
To me, all I had to go by was the plots, because I didn't see all the report stuff. But I would say it was the same size as the fighters and bombers that was coming by us. The smallest thing was that big, and the biggest plot was a bunch of them.
You mentioned that.
But to me, if you asked me doing the thing when it was over, I'd say it was a bunch of planes up there that some way kept shutting off their beams so we couldn't pick them up and then turn it back on. That's how good they were.
Talk about that a bit. You said shut off their beam.
Yeah.
Tell us what you mean by that.
They're set on, turn on their beam. Turn on the beam to recognize it, identify craft as a friendly one.
This is that transponder that we hear about?
Right. If we turn that back on, we drop that plane, go looking for another target, because he's a good guy. And if we turn it off, he's a bad guy. We don't want him.
Interesting. You also mentioned that they test you sometime by dropping chaff.
Yeah.
What does that look like on radar?
It gets a big plot, scatters out, and then the radar looks for a more solid plot and gets back on the plane. And take two planes together sometimes and separate them. They go for the bigger plane, assuming the bigger plane had a bigger target, a bigger bomb load on it. If the other plane had a big one, they go and get him. It's the games you do, like when you're playing in the warfare. That's what we do. We got a bunch of planes that get the biggest one you can get, because he's supposedly the worst guy to get, bad guy in the bunch. It was a short time, but actually when I stop and think about it, it seemed like a very long time. The guys out there in the batteries constantly coming up, and they take a reading out of the radar unit. There's a radar unit right in the end. It's taking all the information from the radar, and it feeds a pulse from the computer where they aim the guns, and they take another reading out of there, and then take it out of it. They go from the gun battery where the guns are, and they got big bunkers there covered up with sandbags, and they'll have one shell about halfway down in there. It's open on the back, and there's a thermometer in there. They'll take that reading and go up and put it in the battery. The computer and the radar, and I don't know how frequency, but it was enough so the temperature in that thing was called firing temperature control, because they wanted to know that meant a lot to do with where the projector went. Battery temperatures affects the projectile's speed and direction, all that stuff. That's all basic anti-aircraft procedures, but none of it was doing any good in this case because they wouldn't stay still.
You said there's 50 some people in a battery.
That's what we had. It's over 100 and something in a battery just working full. We didn't have enough cooks, we didn't have enough drivers, we didn't have enough gunmen, we didn't have enough nothing.
So you're talking a battery is all the logistical support and everything.
Yeah, cooks, first sergeant, supply people, mechanics, truck drivers, everything.
So it's a self-sufficient
Yeah.
location.
They can sit out there, and if they knock out all the communication, which you hear them talking about a lot now, the battery is self-sufficient. When we went on alert, we were on self-sufficient. We were running with our own power. Great big generator, the biggest generators I'd ever been around. I thought I saw some big ones in the Korean places. They were small.
Running out of battery. I think we're good.
I got to throw in one more little thing here.
Okay.
Here we were, prime target, go-getter for Washington, capital of the United States. Had guns and ammunition there ready to blow something out of the sky if we got the warning that that was the bad boy. We lived in pyramidal tents and squat tents. We ate in squat tents. We used slit trenches and funnels for urinals and places to go to the bathroom while we looked at the United States monument. That's the best line of defense we had.
Nice. Okay.
That's so that in.